Hello and welcome to World Talks with me, Ashim Kumar. Tensions are rising again across the Middle East, with Iran setting new conditions for any talks with Washington, while keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. We discuss the latest developments with Professor Heinz Gärtner of the University of Vienna. Professor, welcome back to TVP World. Thanks for taking the time. So let's start with Iran. How would you characterize their latest negotiating stance? What do they want?
After all, these requests by Iran are not that new. The language, of course, is harsh, but all the demands by Iran you can find already in the Memorandum of Understanding. So that's not that different. Ending the war, refrain from the use of force, and the threatening of mutual threatening, and also lifting sanctions, and also some compensation. So that's all in the Memorandum of Understanding. Of course, the situation is now a stalemate because Iran keeps the Strait of Hormuz closed, and President Trump continues to threaten to open it by force. So a mutual agreement on the refraining of the threat or to the use of force, which means a non-aggression agreement, basically would change the situation a little bit, because now the stalemate is unbearable. Both sides want to keep, want to open the Strait of Hormuz for economic reasons. Of course, it's a big pressure on Iran's economy. But also Iran is under pressure at the home front, gas prices, but also the international markets requesting to open it. So both sides want to open it, and they have to find a way to do it. And some sort of non-aggression pact, refraining from mutual threats and the use of force might be an opening to this to new negotiations.
All right, so let's continue with let's focus on the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. The terms of the MOU, have they been agreed upon by both sides?
That's the narrative, that both sides agreed on this, but then, of course, hostilities have been resumed, and both sides said they would suspend now the Memorandum of Understanding, but they did not cancel it. So it's still formally, it still would be in place. Yeah. So it would, of course, be possible to go back to it and to renegotiate some of the points, which are pretty vague, of course. I have to admit.
But Professor, I need to interrupt you just for a second. I want to focus on something in the MOU, and that is no further military action by the US towards Iran. But does that automatically mean then that Iran can continue its uranium development and move closer towards producing a nuclear weapon, and under the MOU the US can't do anything about it? I mean, we're back to square one if that's the case.
Basically, these are two separate issues. The Strait of Hormuz and the nuclear file or the nuclear issue, they're separate. And of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to link them and also to link it to the situation in Lebanon. But I do think they can be negotiated differently. And I think a nuclear agreement is pretty easy to achieve because much has been already achieved by the previous negotiations starting
but people weren't. But independent inspectors weren't allowed into Iran to inspect the facilities, and that was the issue, wasn't it? Sorry, go on. Go on, please.
No. Sure, if you have an agreement, there has to be monitoring, definitely, and even a stronger monitoring, which might include an additional protocol, which would allow on-site inspections, which Iran agreed to sign it after 2015, but then suspended it. So that's, of course, has to be implemented. But if you have an agreement like the GCPOA, or also what has been negotiated under the Biden administration 2021 in Vienna, and then again 2025, 2026 in Geneva before the attacks, I would say 85% of the nuclear file has been negotiated already. And basically, it's also the question of sequencing between sanctions relief and that Iran would reduce the enrichment program, which is not happening anyway now because most of the enrichment facilities are destroyed. So it would be easy to come to an agreement to enrichment level like it was agreed on under the GCPOA on about 3.5%.
Okay. All right. Now, Iran is saying that it is having constructive talks with Oman. What are those talks about?
Yeah, we hear this already for 2 days, that an agreement is in the offing and it's coming. I don't exclude that we'll come to an agreement, and also the US would be fine with it because the US, it would be an agreement between Oman and Iran, including the Gulf states, which is already a part of the MIU. And if there is an agreement, President Trump can say, okay, that's their talks, and that's their agreement between Iran and Oman. And I not necessarily need to interfere if the Strait of Hormuz will be opened, what shipping line ever they might use, the inbound, outbound, the middle road. So that is not that important. So I think it would be a first step if Iran and Oman come to an agreement for opening. Of course, the Gulf states have to be consulted as well.
Okay. I'd like now to move on to President Trump's peace plan for Gaza. He put forward a 15-point peace plan, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected it. Prime Minister is demanding that Hamas completely disarm before the Israeli military moves out of Gaza. Is that an unreasonable request or requirement of the Israelis?
Of course, the plan requests that Hamas disarms completely and that the Israeli forces withdraw completely from Gaza, almost completely. So neither Hamas wants to be disarmed nor Israel wants to withdraw its forces. But it could be, of course, a basis for further negotiations. However, this 15-point agreement has one weak point, one very weak point. It has more weak points, but one weak, that implies that both is happening simultaneously. The disarmament of Hamas and the withdrawal of the Israeli forces, and simultaneously is not happening. So there is the question, what comes first? What is the sequencing? Who starts? And of course, the Hamas is saying Israel has to start to withdraw, and Israel is saying Hamas has to be completely disarmed completely. That's why we have this stalemate. Even so, of course, a plan is a plan, but this was a weak point, and it has not been agreed upon with the sequencing.
Right. OK, let's talk about sequencing. In September 2005, 8,000 Israeli settlers were removed from 21 settlements in Gaza. Hamas won the 2006 election and took full control of Gaza, and immediately after that, Egypt and Israel closed their borders. So Israel has already withdrawn from Gaza once before, but they were still attacked. So do you understand why Prime Minister Netanyahu says we're not making the same mistake again?
Israel has not withdrawn completely because it kept the control over Gaza. Who comes in, who comes out.
As did Egypt. As did Egypt, Professor.
What will be exported. The Hamas, of course, attacked Israel on October 7. Egypt was not really involved that much on the situation. So Egypt stood aside until it came to the discussion of the Rafah opening, and basically Egypt was pressured to open it and for Palestinians to leave, what Egypt then didn't do. So Egypt came under pressure after October 7th, of course. But before that, it was a conflict between Hamas and Israel.
Yes, but did Egypt open after October the 7th?
No, it did not really open up. The Palestinians would say, we don't want to leave anyway, and Egypt was afraid that Palestinians would leave and stay in Egypt. And also the European Union was afraid that then the Palestinians would move on from Egypt to Europe. So it was a very limited opening for emergency cases,
right.
But not really.
Right, so, OK, understood. Professor Gärtner, thank you very much indeed for sharing your analysis with our audience, and have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.